Hi friends, welcome to my channel. For those of you that are new here, my name is Caitlin. For those of you that are not new here, my face is happy that you are seeing it again. And today, this face is going to be ranking all of the palettes that I put on my face in the month of June. So if that's something that you are interested in, then go ahead and keep on watching. Okay, so for those of you that are new to this channel, I do a lot of ranking videos, try on review type stuff. So if that's content that you're interested in, definitely hit that subscribe button. And if you like this kind of video, make sure to give this video a thumbs up. And that is all the business. Oh my God. And that is all the business that we have to attend to today. So let's go ahead and get on into it. I believe I used 16 palettes. So if you've been following this series, you've seen that like earlier in the year I had like something like 30 palettes or something I was using each month. And so the last 2 months have been lighter because I've been focusing on using more, like the palettes that I do use in the month, using them more than just like one time. But anyway, we have 16. So number 16 is the, hold on. Okay, so number 16 is the ColourPop Garden Variety palette, and I actually am probably going to declutter this palette from my collection. It is a really nice color story, very springy, definitely can get good looks out of it, but it's just kind of, I brought it, so this is where, okay, I've decluttered it and that I've put it in my closet and I'm like, do I need to keep it, do I not? I brought it when I went camping with me because I felt like I could get like a variety of looks with this, and all the shimmers perform well. And it was okay, like the quality was fine. It wasn't as good as like palettes that I'm used to using, so I don't know. This palette is like a year old at this point, so I don't know if that's what's causing some issues, but I don't know, it's just not a palette that like the color story is super inspiring to me anymore. It's pretty, it's nice, but I have really what I purchased it for is this like row of purple eyeshadows, and I have plenty of purple eyeshadows, so I don't really need this. But the packaging is really cute too, so I might keep it, but like just not use it as much. I did like it bringing it camping with me because like this was a palette where if it got damaged I wasn't going to be that upset. So anyways, yeah, so it's at the bottom just because I was like, when I used it last month I was like, it's okay. Next up is the Alien Cosmetics. This, I believe they're calling the Poison Apple palette. It's a collaboration between them and Serendipity, the artist. And I've talked about this palette a few times, I think, on my channel / Instagram, but I don't like this red shade. I really don't think it performs well. The rest of the shadows in the palette perform, the shimmers in particular perform really well, and then the mattes perform pretty good for the most part. This yellow is a really good matte, and then the other three mattes are decent in formula, you know, not anything amazing like this yellow, but not anything like terrible either. They blend perfectly fine. Yeah, so they work, they're serviceable, they're fine. Yeah, I think because it's a 9-pan eyeshadow palette and one shade, like it's really like my least favorite eyeshadow shade I've ever used. It just makes it hard for me to like put this palette above other palettes in my collection, but I do think the shimmers are really nice, and I'm excited to try out more palettes from Alien Cosmetics that I feel like have gotten really positive reviews. So next up is my Lunar Beauty Life's a Drag palette. So I am keeping this palette in my collection for collector's purposes, which part of me is like, do I want to do that? But Lunar Beauty is one of my favorite brands. This palette was my favorite palette, particularly for this like neutral section right here, for a long time, although it barely looks used. But I feel like the quality has definitely kind of gone down over the years. I think I bought this in 2018, so this is definitely old. I still like to kind of, you know, bring it out sometimes because I do think it's a fun palette to play with, so that's why I'm going to keep it, but it's not going to be one that I like actively try to keep using. And it did prevent me from buying the facelift palette because I have this, so it didn't make sense to have both this palette and the facelift palette that's essentially this palette with some extra shades. But anyway, I do want to try and like buy all of the palettes from Lunar Beauty other than the facelift palette because it's the same palette. But am I making any sense? I'm just kind of talking and rambling, but you guys, it's a good palette. I liked it a lot more when I first got it, and like over time I've just noticed that, you know, I mean the open jar, it's 12 months, so this is 24 months past like the recommended time to use it, so it's probably not great. Next up is the Urban Decay Naked Wild West palette. I like this palette. I think that the shades, I think like it's nice that you can kind of have, you know, this color story, like a teal situation, you know, a brownish situation, and then I think Pony Up goes well with like Laredo and Cowboy Rick. But anyway, I think you have a lot of options of like set color stories, and then you can also mix and match it. So I really, really like this color story. The quality of the shadows is only okay. I don't know why Urban Decay can't get like as good of a formula as everybody else, but I don't know. Or maybe it's a formula that works for some people and I'm just not one of those people. Next up is the Melt Cosmetics Brunette palette. This is a newer palette to my collection. It's fine. I do think this shimmer right here, Musk, is really pretty. Bourbon and Stout are also really nice shimmers, but the mattes are nice. I just feel like there's these three really light mattes weren't necessary. And actually, okay, Cork I think is fine. For my skin tone, that's a transition shade. But like these two, I don't really think we needed both in the palette. And it's, for being 8 shades and having 2 shades, kind of similar to the Alien Cosmetics. It's just like, no matter how good the quality is, you're sort of like, it's kind of a waste of space. So next up is the ColourPop Sandstone palette. I've talked about this palette a few times on my channel. I've used it periodically. I live in Arizona, so I really liked the kind of the theming. They meant this to look like, you know, kind of Sedona and like the rest of Arizona, and I think they had mentioned somewhere that Sedona was sort of their inspiration. So I really like this color story. I also brought this palette camping with me, so if I could just use these shimmers, and again, it's another palette because it's a ColourPop palette, if they break, it's not devastating, and if I am devastated, I could typically repurchase the palette from ColourPop for pretty cheap. So that's why I like to take these palettes. Desert Sky and Westward are my favorite shimmers in the palette, although Pueblo is really nice, but I feel like Pueblo is a shimmer that you could get in any palette, but I feel like these two green shimmers are actually kind of unique to my collection, so I like this palette. Next up is the BH Cosmetics 2000s Remix Dance palette. This palette's nice. I really do like the purples in here, and I do like how warm kind of these brown neutrals are. The shimmers, this BH shimmer formula is incredible. I think the look I did with this palette in the month of June was kind of to use like all the gray kind of smoky shades and do a smoky eye with it, and it was okay. It wasn't like the best, but I think I might have fun mixing those gray shades more with like the purple shades in here, and maybe that would be the look that I'll, you know, enjoy those gray metallics more. Next up is the Menagerie Cosmetics and Annette's Makeup Corner Serenity palette. This palette is really nice. I did do a review of this palette, like a look and a review of this palette on my channel. The mattes are super pigmented, but they do stain, at least for me. The staining was pretty bad. I would wash I do a double cleanse, so I would double cleanse, and then I would have to wash my face the next morning and then use like a eyeshadow remover on it again. So like I do that obviously when I cleansed the night before, but anyway, it just was like lots of steps to even get it to like kind of come off. So I personally don't mind staining that much. So I still really like this palette, but it is something that keeps me from like loving this palette, because I do have to be more conscientious of like, if I'm not going to wear makeup the next day, like, or if I'm going to do a light eyeshadow look because I'm going to work the next day, like I'm probably not going to reach for this palette because I don't want that staining to come through. Next up is the Natasha Denona Zendo palette. So this palette I think is nice. I like that it's kind of these warm tones and then these kind of blue tones. I said this in probably the last video you saw. Yama, Tranquil, and Aura, I would actually probably throw Luster in there. Those 1, 2, 3, 4 shimmers are really nice, whereas Flow, Equilibrium, and Sense just aren't quite the shimmer formula that I feel like Natasha normally has. But her cream to powder formula, which is Breath, Mantra, and Calm, is my favorite formula. I love it, and I love especially with Breath, that being in that formula is so nice. But yeah, I think it's a nice palette. I think you can do like a really like fiery kind of like red orange look that looks really nice, or you know, keeping it over here. I think the looks still come out nice, but yeah, I haven't really tried to like kind of cross between the two. So maybe that's an opportunity to make that palette more interesting for myself. Next up is the On the Horizon palette. This is the Sydney Grace and Temptalia collab. I have only used this palette once, but I did really enjoy it. And from what I felt of the swatches of the mattes and shimmers, I think they're all going to perform amazing. So I don't have a ton of thoughts on this palette yet, but as I keep playing with it, you'll hear more about it. This is also the Sydney Grace and Temptalia collection, or collab, and then this is the Radiant Reflection palette. Oh, I should mention, mine are both in light, so she did light and deep versions of each palette, so I have all of the palettes in light, but this one is my favorite solely because gloss over is like the most electric blue on the eye. I think it's stunning, but yeah, I've also only used this palette once, so again, kind of taking my thoughts with a grain of salt so far. Okay, so next up is the Laura Lee Los Angeles and Aaron Weaver collab. This is the Candy Skies palette. This palette is so pretty. Like, I love looking at it and smelling it. It smells good. I've only used this palette twice so far, but I've really been enjoying it. And yeah, I mean, the mattes blend really nice. The shimmers all perform really well. It's really nice too. Here, that you kind of have like a shimmer to coordinate. Like, so for example, Pistachio goes with Mint Chip, Sunset goes with Roasted Caramel, Macaron goes with Sugar Mama. Those are all like pretty easy, like 2 shadow looks. Then if you wanted to, you also have these darker shimmers. So you have Mixed Berry and Blue Raspberry that have like pastel mattes to kind of coordinate with them. So if you wanted to like do like mostly a shimmery eye look and then just like use those to kind of blend out those shimmers, you can definitely do that. So overall, I think this palette's really nice. I think there's a lot of options. And then I think I will also really enjoy using it when I, combine it with some other palettes to get some of that depth. But just because I prefer looks that are slightly more deep than a pastel look. But like yesterday, for example, I needed like a quick like get out of the house look. And so I just did, I think it was like Mint Chip and then so the mint green matte and then the mint green like shimmer, and that's it. Like, and then I left, so it's I definitely think it's a good palette for that, especially if you like lighter toned looks. I've been really enjoying it so far. I think the formula is awesome. Next up is the Nomad Cosmetics palette. This is the America's Parks palette. So it's based on America's national parks. I think this palette is beautiful. I've used it, I think 2 times so far. So I haven't used every shade yet, but I definitely enjoy these shimmers. I think the quality is really nice. It's kind of the standard Nomad quality. Yeah, that's all I got. It's a nice palette. Next up is the Anastasia Beverly Hills Norvina Collection Volume 5 palette. This is probably one of my favorite palettes, but seeing as I just got it last month, it feels weird to like put it, I mean, I could have maybe put this at number 1, but this is such a nice palette. I've used every shade. I love it. The combination of E4 and C4, so that like brown and then that gold with like pink reflect shimmer, that's like my new go-to look as far as like I want to look nice, but I don't want to spend a lot of time, so I'm just going to do 2 eyeshadows and like get out the door. Like, this palette has become that for me, but I definitely want to play around more because I think I've done like 5 looks, but I've done that one look like a couple of times. So anyways, next up is the Musée Beauty Rococo palette. I just really like this palette. I think the shimmers are nice. I like the color story. It's very similar in tones and like sort of color story to the Huda Beauty Mercury Retrograde palette, which is one of my favorite palettes of all time. So I think I just really vibe with this color story. I do wish like Apotheosis and Triumph weren't both in here because they're very similar shades, especially on the eye, and I feel like they could have given us like a green, oh, you know what, this palette might go well with like the Candy Skies palette, like mixing in some of those shimmers. I think I might do that. But anyway, I think the outer packaging is stunning and I really, really, really like this palette. Number 1 is the Nomad Cosmetics Iceland Fire and Ice palette. Yeah, I mean, I did do a review of this palette on my channel, I'm pretty sure. And I just freaking love this palette. I think the shimmers in this palette are like the best, and I don't know if it's like the quality of them or if it's just the tones in them or pretty much a combination of both, but I really, really like this palette. I'm a big fan, and yeah, that's why it's number one. So anyways, those were all of the palettes I used in the month of June. Let me know your thoughts down below. If you have any of these palettes, which ones do you have? Do you feel kind of similarly to the way I feel, or do you like them more, less? I don't know. Just let me know down below. Let me know what palettes you've been really enjoying lately. And with that, I will let you guys go back to whatever it was that you would like to do with your day, and I will see you next time. Bye!